Elon Musk just confirmed Starlink 2.0 huge internet updates in 2022. SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, released an update on its Starlink internet service on Thursday, as the company launched more satellites into orbit. The rocket's company engineer Jessie Anderson said during a webcast of the company's first launch of the year that the company's Starlink service now has over 145,000 active users in 25 countries around the world. It is up from 140,000 users in early November, but it represents a slowdown in the growth of users. Want to know more about it? Then switch this video to full screen and watch this video till the end. Hello everyone, welcome to Tech United, a channel where you can find everything about tech. And in today's video we are going to talk about the revolutionary satellites known as Starlink. But before we head into the video, consider liking and subscribing to the channel, and also don't forget to press the bell icon. With that being said, let's begin! A Falcon 9 rocket was launched from Florida on January 6th, carrying 49 Starlink satellites into orbit. According to the company, Starlink intends to build an internet network that will be interconnected by thousands of satellites, referred to in this space industry as a constellation. It is designed to provide high-speed internet to consumers anywhere on the planet. At the moment, SpaceX has more than 1,800 Starlink satellites in orbit. Starlink has the advantage of reducing latency. HughesNet, a company that controls over 60% of the satellite internet industry, launches its satellites into geosynchronous Earth orbit, GEO, which is approximately 22,000 miles above the Earth's surface. The considerable distance between the ground station and the satellite and back and forth causes a delay of 500 to 800 milliseconds just to cross the distance to the satellites. Although this is a sufficient amount of bandwidth in order to conduct internet surfing and video streaming, it is not sufficient for real-time activities such as games and video conference calls. Comparatively, Starlink's satellites are in low Earth orbit, which means they are approximately 340 miles above the surface, which is considerably lower than our in-flight Wi-Fi satellites. The lowering of satellites alone would make this process a far superior one to anything else that is currently on the market. But the low orbital height also translates to a reduced viewing angle for their receivers at ground level. So Starlink would need a constellation of very dense space boxes on or near the ground level in order to achieve any level of performance. There has been a slowdown in growth for the past 2 months, as users have increased by 5,000 over 2 months. Until November, SpaceX had been gaining approximately 11,000 new subscribers each month since starting their service in October 2020. During the last few months, SpaceX posted on its website that silicon shortages have delayed production of the Starlink user terminals, which has affected our ability to fulfill orders. As a result of the tremendous success of its Starlink satellite, SpaceX has seen its value rise past $100 billion, a development that industry analysts attribute in large part to its market potential. However, SpaceX's first launch of the new year was successful when the rocket's first stage landed on the deck of its newest drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas, 9 minutes after liftoff, making the first successful launch and landing of the new year for SpaceX. In order to launch on time, the weather forecasters at the 45th Space Delta thought that there would be ideal weather conditions, and Mother Nature did not disappoint them. It was a beautiful day in Florida, and it was possible to see the rocket as it entered and climbed through the atmosphere, disappearing from sight as soon as the first stage separated and began its descent to Earth. A successful liftoff on Thursday kicks off a very busy year in the aerospace sector for the California-based company. In the year 2021, SpaceX set a new record for the number of launches that a company has made in a single year with 31. It is also worth mentioning that the company launched 12 astronauts on 3 Crew Dragon missions over the last few years, including 4 private citizens who flew on the Inspiration 4 mission. It is expected that SpaceX will continue to expand its internet constellation this year as it keeps up with its rapid launch cadence. The company also plans this month for its 3rd dedicated rideshare mission, which is dedicated to the launch of numerous small satellites into orbit. In addition, after the successful launch of the PSLV on January 13th, the company will also launch a radar reconnaissance satellite for the Italian space agency known as Cosmos SkyMed Second Generation, CSG-2. This satellite is scheduled to launch on January 24th. SpaceX's flight on January 6th is the 35th dedicated launch dedicated to SpaceX's constellation of Starlink satellites since 2019. The flight is part of the company's efforts to expand and enhance its internet constellation Starlink. The launch of the satellite brings the total number of flat-paneled Starlink satellites to almost 2,000 in total. Additionally, the company is continuing to work on the launch of newly upgraded satellites as well. The company equipped the satellites with special laser links so they could communicate with one another. By doing so, satellites will be able to communicate more effectively without using ground relays. Additionally, this launch will also feature a different trajectory than normal, with the rocket flying southeast from the coast of Florida, as opposed to following the typical northeast path that recent missions have followed. The aircraft will therefore fly just north of the Bahamas so as to avoid flying over any populated areas that may be in the way. This is due to the fact that SpaceX is targeting an orbital shell a few hundred miles above the Earth, at an inclination of 53.2 degrees. One of 5 orbital shells that the company is trying to fill with roughly 4,400 satellites. Initially, these shells will be located at various altitudes above the planet, between 335 and 348 miles, 540 and 560 kilometers, and at orbital inclinations of 53, 53.2, 70 and 97.6 degrees. The inclination is defined as the angle between the orbital plane and the equator. SpaceX has so far filled the 53-degree shell and is now working on the rest of the shell. The launch on Thursday will fill another empty spot in the 53.2-degree orbit, but it will do so by taking an entirely different route. The overarching goal of Starlink is to connect as many people around the world as possible, especially those in rural and remote areas with limited or no access to the internet. As of today, the service is fully operational and accessible in 20 countries, and that number is growing steadily. Company officials have stated that the program has more than 100,000 subscribers and that it is continuously growing. Thus, in order to deliver its many payloads into space, the company heavily relies on a fleet of used rockets, and this mission is no different. Known as B-1062, the rocket, which was used to launch Thursday's test, has now completed 5 successful flights. This spacecraft first made its debut in November 2020 when it launched an upgraded GPS-3 satellite for the US Space Force. As part of that mission, it was the second time in SpaceX's history that a booster could be recovered after launching a payload for the US government. During the previous GPS-3 launch, the GPS-3 satellite was recovered for the first time ever as a result of the government's mission. Just 7 months later, it would also go on to become the first launch vehicle to carry a second government payload into space, as the rocket carried the second GPS-3 satellite into space. In the aftermath of that successful liftoff, the rocket launched SpaceX's first private astronaut mission, Inspiration 4. In addition to the flight, there was a massive fundraising effort that was held for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. This historic mission involved 4 private citizens: Jared Isaacman, Haley Acrono, Cyan Proctor, and Chris Sembrowski, traveling aboard a Crew Dragon spacecraft and orbiting the Earth for 3 days. In the booster's 4th flight, the same booster launched a stack of SpaceX's own internet satellites into orbit before returning to Earth and landing at sea on a floating platform on January 6th evening. But anyways, are you considering taking a connection of Starlink? Well, let us tell you the rates for a user. An early user of Starlink said it will cost $499 for a one-time cost for the ground hardware and $99 a month for the basic internet service. And Starlink has recently developed a new dish that is smaller and lighter than before, named Dishy McFlatface. However, it still costs $499. But HughesNet costs as much as $150 a month, comes with a 50GB high-speed data plan at 25 megabits per second, and has a horrible latency that makes gaming impossible, and even streaming a chore. We can definitely say that Starlink is a revolutionary and developing project. Anyway, what do you guys think about this? Do you think this constellation is gonna make a revolution? Tell us in the comments. And that's all for today. We'll see you in the next video. Till then, stay safe and peace.